Humbrecht Law here, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my Friday noon webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about how to take the EEK out of public speaking. I know, and I have a very special guest today. I don't even know how to do our guest justice. Peggy Kimmey is the best speaker I have ever met in my entire life. I feel kind of bad about having to speak after Peggy today. Not to intimidate anybody, but she's going to be talking to us about some tips about public speaking, maybe how people can overcome some fears. And it's probably especially relevant now because so many of us are probably doing more speaking online now, using Zoom and everything else than we ever were before. So I know Peggy from Toastmasters. Peggy's actually going to be my mentor, and I just joined Toastmasters because I want to work on my public speaking skills, and I think it's something that everybody would want to work on in some way. So in just a second, I'm going to let Peggy introduce herself and tell everybody why she is qualified to give this presentation. But I just also want to invite everybody who's watching this, even if you're popping on late, leave a note in the comments. Let us know where you're signing in from. If you like this, like it, thumbs up, love it. You can leave a wow face, whatever you want to do. And also you can leave questions in the comments that we can get to after Peggy's presentation. So don't be shy. Feel free to throw in some comments, or questions, I should say. But right now I'm going to hand it over to Peggy. So Peggy, do you want to tell everybody about who you are?
Sure. First, thank you very much, Jean. I am excited to be here, and your comments were very kind, and I appreciate it. I give kudos to you for your public speaking and sharing and staying connected this way and bringing this to the folks that are live on Facebook, and we'll be able to share it and reach out and re-watch it. And I just kudos, yay, proud of you for all the other people that you've had on board. So I am honored to be allowed to follow them and be included in this.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm honored to have you here.
So you had mentioned that you wanted me to tell a little bit about why I can talk about taking the EEK out of public speaking. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of background about me. I love this kind of thing. I love being on video. I know y'all are saying I'm crazy. And I love being in front of a room and teaching something, sharing something that people can take back. That's been one of the things that have gotten me through. I still get nervous, so it's not like it goes away, but it doesn't distract me. And I know how to grab that nervousness and turn it into hopefully some fun energy. And I practice what I preach. So what I'm sharing with you today, I have applied myself, and it helps me to get connected with the audience, to stay engaged, to remember what I'm doing, and get through it all so that you can be done with it sometimes. Yes, we all do feel that way. So it's not that it's going to go away, but I've got a few tips for you to help you get through it and get through it well, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, Peggy, this is really your show today. So I know you have a presentation that's going to be very helpful for everybody. But if there's anything you want to say before we actually get to your presentation, I mean, maybe you cover it in your presentation, but maybe some common concerns or common issues that you see. Because in Toastmasters, for anybody that doesn't know, Peggy's been in Toastmasters for a very long time. So they work on all sorts of things, and that's not even the right word to use, to help with public speaking and not saying like I just did, and preparing speeches and body language and all sorts of different things over the years. So just based on your experience, what have you maybe seen, and also mentoring people in Toastmasters, what is a common fear or concern or a common mistake maybe that people make that we can talk about before we get going?
All right. Taking it from the Toastmasters context, and even some full-on public speaking classes, multi-weeks that I've taught for Fairfax County Adult Community Education. The things that people get hung up on, a number of them are within my 7 steps that I'm about to share with you. because it's physical things that happen to us when we get nervous. And so some of my tips are things to do to counteract that. What can you do to manage those physical things better? Some of it is mental stuff. There's a little bit about mindset. So we're going to talk about that and how to adjust the way you look at, oh my gosh, I've got to give a speech kind of thing. And then there are some tips that are just simple facts of preparing your speech, looking at your surroundings, where you are, and managing that. So it's a few tips on all those areas, and Toastmasters is a great place to practice. Practicing your speeches, practicing just putting these steps and others together. Where do you go that won't immediately be, oh, I'm practicing in front of the board, I'm practicing in front of a customer. So Toastmasters is the place to come to get better at these skills in a warm, encouraging, and helpful. The people are there to help you get better. So we're going to tell you when you look funny when you're saying something, or to help you be aware of your ums. So that's the practice ground. If you want to get better, you've got to practice, and better to be not practicing on the bread and butter pieces of the why, where you want to use these skills. Come practice at Toastmasters, get better so that you are your best that you can be when you're ready to present. So with that, I guess, unless you have another question for me, Jean, I'll go ahead and click the magic buttons and you will start sharing my screen. I'm a visual person, so I can talk them off my head. But for me as a learner, so putting myself in the audience's seat, I'd like to see step number 1 and what was that. And also, we do have something, maybe when you put this video all together and it gets reshared, maybe we can put it in the comments, is a PDF of the presentation that people can can download, make notes, be a helpful tool for them for later. So,
oh, great. Yeah, we'll definitely put that PDF link in the comments after, for sure.
Okay. Excellent.
Well, of course, I shouldn't have even asked that question, because Peggy, as experienced as she is already well prepared and covered everything in her presentation. So let's just get going.
All right. I will click a couple buttons.
Don't you love technology now?
I do. This is such fun.
All right. I am sharing your screen, Peggy. Let's get going.
All right. Can you see my 7 steps to take the EEK out of public speaking?
I can see it. Peggy, why don't you get started? And if anybody who's watching, leave a note in the comment if you can see it or you can't, but we're just going to keep on trucking.
Perfect. Step 1. And here, I know you're looking at this and going, but Peggy, that's 2 things. But they really, really, really are one step together. You can't separate them. They must go together. The preparation. What does it take to prepare? And then you've got to practice what you prepared. So to prepare, first of all, brainstorm, get all your ideas out of your head, so they aren't distracting you anymore. You're not saying, oh, I got to remember that's a great statistic or what a great story. Whether you're using paper and pencil or a document on your computer, whether you're recording your bright ideas on your phone, whatever you have, but get all your ideas out. There's nothing that's bad. Brainstorming is all about all the parts and pieces, just to get them out. And then you go through and you pick and choose. Identify related pieces of information, different topics. Then you can begin to pare down, thinking about what's the order that you want to put them in, or what are the pieces of information that go together? What pieces can you include that will fit into your time frame? And what do you need that, oh, those pearls of wisdom, they'll have to come in another speech. So go through, group them, choose your main point. Now, one of the things that we really focus on in Toastmasters is the organization of the speech. So remembering to include that main point. You want people to remember it. It's important enough to you to be speaking about it. Well, then say it. And don't just assume that, We are so focused on you that there's nothing in the room to distract. Our phones are on silent, and you're going to be full attention the whole time. Human beings, even when we try, we get distracted. Something that you say will make us think of something else, and you'll say a great thing, and we won't hear it. So don't be afraid to remind us of your main point, both in your introduction and in your conclusion. So you've put together this speech, this presentation, this sales pitch, as long or short as you need it to be. You have to practice. Yes, everything's coming from you and everything's familiar, but I guarantee you, the first time you say them out loud, you're going to say, oh, that phrase that sounded like gold in my head, all of a sudden, I can't really wrap my lips around those words and have them come out right. I need to make a change. You're not going to know that till you hear it out loud. And your butterflies are going to come at a different place. When you tell it to your spouse or significant other, a business associate to preview it for you, tell it to your dog as they sit at your feet while you're working on it, practice in the mirror, practice on Zoom with a friend. All of these things, you're going to notice, oh, and there I am. I'm waving my arms and it's a great gesture, and my hands just went outside of the frame and it's not doing any good. So practice all of those things out loud with props. Here I am with my slideshow. Jean and I practiced beforehand and talked about how we would go into this and how I'd get my screen ready and Jean would make it active. Each of these online things take a little bit of practice and they do it a little bit differently. You need to prepare. You need to practice. How's my audio coming in? What else can I do? Practice with all of your props and think about the timing that you have. What if you're on a very strict schedule and the person ahead of you goes long? You may need to trim it down. What story can you take out and still have that be a cohesive message? What if someone says, oh no, we need you to go on early and fill the time because someone's coming, but they got stuck in traffic? So you need to stretch it out a little. Do you have a story that you cut out that you can add in that will even enhance it? Where can you dance and stretch or constrict? So you've prepared, you've practiced, you're ready. Arrive early. Again, Jean and I were talking before we went live. I got here early, she got here early. If you're setting up, whether it's a Zoom or an in-person at a location, how early can you get there? Can you set up ahead of time? What is the room going to be look like? Did I just say that? What is the room going to look like?
And Peggy, I'm paying attention to you, but I didn't even hear it until after you said, what did I just say?
Well, I'm glad.
I want to actually interject something about preparing because you know how things are. Usually I do these from my home, but today I'm in my office. As you can see, my degree's behind me. I had court earlier today. Court went a little bit later than I thought it would. And I am using a different computer. I got to my office early just to make sure the internet was going to work on this computer, because if it didn't, then I'd have time to use my other computer because I brought my personal laptop. So I planned, and Peggy didn't even have to tell me, I planned, for some contingencies. And I also have my phone in case something went wrong, because I've never done this from my office before. It's always been from my home office.
Perfect examples. Thank you, Jean. Anytime. Feel free to jump in and bring your experience to this, because this is all about the different things that people experience and that preparing and practicing, thinking ahead. What if you did your multiple steps for preparing? So gold star for Jean. Now, you were familiar with your office setting, but you had to get familiar with your computer and see how that was going to work. And even as we were doing that, the seating in the room, we both had to adjust our screens a little bit to get us in frame and know, I needed to know how far I could reach around with my hands and things. When you're in a live, assuming we get done with quarantine, and we will get to go back to being live in a location for speaking as well. So I'm going to flip back and forth between the online and the live so that it's useful for you.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. So going back to the in-person, when you get there, you're looking at your setup. How do your slides project if you're using a projection screen, testing the microphone, but it's not just about you. Think about the people in those seats, seating, line of sight, ventilation even. You are in charge, and you need to think about that when someone is 6 foot tall sitting in the front row and someone is 5.5 sitting behind them. Are they going to be able to see around? Are the chairs offset? Can you control any of that? Online, I'm grateful that I've got you, Jean, because you're watching me, you're watching my presentation, you're also checking the chat to see if anyone pops in with a question. So that's another piece that you bring into it. Are people needing to be allowed into the room? What other technical challenges? Might there be emails or phone calls or text messages saying, I can't get in, or my audio is not working? And if someone else can help the speaker just because you thought of it ahead of time and you asked, there's usually a number of people who would love to jump on and help you with that too. Testing, talked about this. Test your props, test your technology. Additional materials, like the PDF of this presentation. If you're going live, you may want your handouts out ahead of time as people are signing in and getting their name tags. Some people don't like to give handouts because they think, well, then people are just going to be reading my handouts and won't be listening to me. I can tell you, what you see on the slides is what you're going to get, but I didn't fill it all up with everything I have to share. You still have to listen to me. So there's still room for you to take notes on the things that you find most important. Now, own that room. Once you get there, you get the lay of the land, you get your technology all set up. What else is there? I want you to feel comfortable when you're in person. Go out into the room where those seats are, back in the corners, back where the coffee and the water is set up, and walk around and, yes, I'm serious, sing, do jumping jacks, get comfortable. Feel like you own that room and you're going to make noise. You need to hear the acoustics. How does the sound bounce around? When you could even get someone else to stand up front and speak and you listen. Or you get up front and you do the testing on the microphone. What are they hearing in the back of the room? Is there additional microphones, and are they too loud or too soft? Are you getting reverberation? Are you getting no sound at all? You need to know that beforehand. And when you have gone around that room and, done a little dance, made a little noise, hey, anything you do for your official presentation is going to seem simple. And, I've done everything in this room. It's mine. So know the acoustics. Also, hearing yourself in a new setting for the first time can be a little jarring, whether it's too loud or too soft, or just how do you sound. It's different. You want to hear that, not just when you're going on stage. Now, online is a little bit different. You'll notice, well, I think you'll notice my name display. So all of these online rooms have someplace, either when you're logging in, what name display, or someplace for you to see it and right click on it and update. Sometimes it's important for you to include your full name, those title initials that show your certifications. You may want to have the initials of your company, or if you are representing an organization and you want that first, even if you're just on video, if we get to see you and you're there to brand yourself and your company, put your company name in there. Think about that name tag online. How do you want to display? Do you know how to manage muting and unmuting? I have a question. Rather than typing a long one in the chat box, I'd like to say it. So if there's a Q&A time, do you know how to unmute yourself? Turn off your video. You've got to go talk with someone. Do you have a nice picture of yourself set up? All those pieces are about you online and how you display when you're speaking or even in the audience. How is your environment? I am in a quiet place. There's a door over there, and I left it open just a little bit so my dog can come and go without barking or asking me to come let her in or out. And I put a sign on the door so the other folks in my family will know, hey, she's recording. So hopefully there won't be any phones ringing or folks shouting. I can't help the dog barking, but do your best to manage your space. Who's looking at whom? I am certainly checking my bullets to help me, remind me, keep me on track and going through, but I'm trying to remember to actually look at the camera. Now, I can't see your reactions in this particular setting right now, but there have been other times when I get a little side list and I can have that list and I can actually click and scroll through. So when you're watching me and I'm looking at the camera, I may be watching you. Are you taking a drink, doing your nails, sending out a text about me and how I'm doing, or something else, talking to someone, falling asleep? I love it when I can actually see, because if I say something funny, rarely, but every once in a while, I get people's reactions. I see that aha moment when I say something and they go, scribble, 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 scribble. So when you can be interactive, watch them. You have to have practiced enough that you know your presentation so that you can see what people are doing. But you should always remember, I may be watching you, just like you are watching me.
Peggy, I'm actually really glad that you said that, because one of the things that I wrote down, because I was writing notes, it's actually a two-part question. One, I was wondering if you've noticed if people, this is about the audience, not the speaker, if you as a speaker have noticed that people are more distracted in these online meetings than they would have been in person. And then maybe what are some telltale signs that we don't show, if we're not paying it. I'm paying attention to you because I have to, right?
Right.
But if this was and we can't see everybody that's watching us on Facebook, right? But if this was a meeting where you could see everybody's face, what do people do that shows they're not paying attention? I mean, how would you as a speaker know, or is it possible to know?
I can tell you what I've seen and what I watch for. So great question, especially with this online. When you're in person, people feel it more and they're often in a room with other folks. We are more aware and understanding that people are going to look at their phones. Sometimes it's a message that they have to send back or reply to, and sometimes they're tweeting about us. So short time on a phone and then coming back to looking at you is typically just the kind of things. Or if someone is looking down and they're writing notes, that is still an engagement. But they're in a room, people beside them are noticing. If they are mumbling or take a phone call, they'll leave. Whereas here, we can just be on mute and take a phone call or talk to someone. To me, I feel like when we're online, we feel like we are in a bubble. And if we haven't intentionally turned off our video to put up a smiling face or just our name, we forget that we are being watched. And we sit like this instead and look bored. Or, even if it's just a more relaxed kind of sitting back, you're listening, but you're looking around. You probably wouldn't do that in a meeting. Not so much. You'd be more engaged. You'd be more at least facing the presenter and trying to look like you were paying attention. Just like we learned when we were in class that even if our mind was wandering, we learned to look at the teacher and look like we were engaged. That has lessened, in my experience, while we are online. So being aware of, if you know you're going to zone out or have a few distractions, don't just mute yourself, but have a nice picture maybe and put your video face. Like the Jetsons, it had that screen come down when the gal was in her curlers and still had her cold cream on her face, but she had her pretty face up instead to take the phone calls. Very, very futuristic, and we're there now. So if you're going to get bored or you're going to be distracted or you just don't want to have to worry about that active listening, then be respectful and don't show your inactive listening to the speaker, because it can be a little depressing to be animated and try to talk and keep you engaged, and I'll be going, oh. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Well, what about this, Peggy? What does it look like I'm doing right now?
Remember, I can't see anything but my slides, but I can certainly hear you typing.
Oh, you can't? Oh, see? Well, I just learned something new. Okay.
Yeah, on this particular one, I cannot see you. However, I guess it depends. If I hear a constant stream of typing, hopefully they were at least muting, then I'm going to assume you aren't just taking a few notes about what I'm telling you. If there are bursts of it, I would probably, if I'm hearing that and I'm trying to give a presentation, if I hear it, I know someone else is. And if I don't have a room monitor, then I may say, hey, folks, I really appreciate you all taking notes and being here today. If we haven't muted you, or if you accidentally unmuted, we're getting a little bit of feedback. Please check your mute and go ahead and silence yourself so we're not hearing the things that are going on. And if it's still typing, I'll say, thrilled that you're taking notes. I'm glad you're learning something, but the typing is a little distracting. Can you mute yourself? And again, hopefully someone who's in that room with me might be able to look at the participants and see the people that are unmuted, maybe reach out to them if we have to take extreme measures. But usually just a mention of that gets people's attention enough.
Now, I'm sorry to be interrupting you, but I thought of another question. Now, you are obviously a very experienced speaker, and I'm not just saying that. You've been in Toastmasters for a long time. You have a lot of experience doing this. You've taught classes on this. So I just said, see how you're helping me already, Peggy? So you can probably did it again. Let stuff roll off your shoulders and probably not be as bothered or distracted by things that people do. Now, if somebody is newer to public speaking or still has this fear, I know you said you still get nervous, but let's say somebody that does not have your experience, and then they see people doing the things that you just described, how does that make them feel?
I have often had new speakers come up to me afterwards and asking, gee, how did I do? Because so-and-so was not looking at me. It is definitely off-putting for the new person. And not that you will always know whether they're new or not. Anyone who is giving of their time and effort to present something, and they've presumably put in the preparation needed, and they're up there and not you, aren't you glad to make the effort to simply present yourself in an attentive manner? There are some things that some folks are I'm just sitting back casual and listening, and it may not look like I'm engaging, but you've got my full attention. I'm just comfortable doing it. There's good and bad to be said. I don't want people to feel like they've, the only right answer is to sit up prim and proper and, lean forward and it doesn't have to be exaggerated, but just courtesy. People won't get weirded out by things that are just simple. Gee, they're relaxing, I guess. They've got their arms crossed. Maybe they're cold. There are other reasons besides I disagree, to come across like that. But being aware of how you look, and when you're on video, I think a lot of people don't like to see themselves, and so if they can scroll the list, they look at everybody else. They're not looking at themselves. I encourage you to watch yourself, see what you look like. You may have a drink off to the side. How far do you reach to do that? How is the light coming in? I'm seeing less and less of it. People are getting used to this. But in the very beginning, how many times was the camera? Probably they were on a phone and the camera was down here. And so they're watching intently like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's nothing in their nose, thank goodness. But there were some awkward moments or really up high for things. It's like, all right, lady, pull your shirt up. I'm not, I'm not trying to look there. So we are getting better, but we really need to, with this window of focus, how are we presenting ourselves even when we're not presenting? You are on and people are seeing you and people are able to look at you more carefully than just, you're in a row of speakers in a room. No, I'm sitting right in front of you the whole time and can see you, and you never know who's looking at you when. So trying to be aware of that, keeping your window open and visible, or checking once in a while. Oh, gee, do I need to straighten up my shirt? Look like I'm paying attention. All of that. Thank you, Jean. Does that spark any other questions?
Oh, yes, it does. But I want to let you get going to the rest of your 7 steps, and then I'll save my questions.
Okay. Until something else, just, feel free.
Okay.
So my next step, number 4, is breathe. I know you've been breathing since you were a baby and you think you've got it all figured out. But I got to tell you, when we get nervous, our chest tenses up and we tend to breathe just from the top portion of our lungs. And that's where people are taking shallow breaths and they're trying to say things while they're thinking and they're nervous. And then those little breaths, you're starting to hyperventilate. And then you get more nervous because you're getting a little fluffy headed. You start to see spots. That's part of the nervousness. I know from my husband and my daughter that if they can get through a presentation before that dark funnel closes in and they can't see anybody, I'm grateful I was never quite that nervous. But calming down and breathing deeply, a few deep breaths is going to help tremendously with that. Remember to connect, breathe all the way down into your diaphragm. That's also where you're going to pull more of a clear, deep, solid voice. When you have more air, you won't feel the need to rush, so you can speak without trying to get it all out before I lose my air. Also, when you're thinking about this, Jean and I knew she was going to talk a bit. I had time to breathe and relax my shoulders, breathe into my belly before you're getting introduced. Remind myself things are not as bad as I thought they could be. We're already here. I know what's going on in the room. My presentation is working. It's going to be all right. Take a few deep breaths and breathe. Breathe. And then smile. There is a neurological reaction that helps when we engage these muscles in our face. As a matter of fact, there have been scientific studies that have shown when people are unhappy, a little depressed, I'm not talking super duper, but when they're just kind of meh, and they want to get out of it and they don't want to be totally fake, and they put if you take a pencil or pen and put it in your mouth, it's forcing you to smile. There is something about doing that for 30 seconds and making these muscles engage that changes your neurological reaction. So when you incorporate relaxing and breathing deeply and putting that smile on your face, it just unplugs that adrenaline rush, fight or flight. What am I going to do? It just, never mind, stop. There's no fire. False alarm. Everything's going to be all right. So smiling in conjunction with breathing is going to help you calm down. Now, when you're in person that you're going to go up and take the place of whoever was giving your introduction oftentimes. Shake their hand, smile in their eyes, thank them for introducing you. When you're online, you're going to be introduced, and that's the people know who's talking. In the beginning, people are able to watch Jean, but I was smiling. I knew I was on the moment people came into that live stream. They were trying to decide, who am I looking at? Okay, that's Jean. I know Jean. Who's this Peggy person? Huh? Does she look familiar? Have I seen her somewhere? And yeah, I better be smiling. I shouldn't be, cleaning my fingernails or doing something else. As soon as people come into the online meeting, you are on. So, this gift, step number 6, a gift. What am I talking about? We were talking about presentations, and now am I supposed to bring a gift to my host? No, you are giving a speech. That's the gift. Now, without you, there wouldn't be a presentation. Without Jean finding folks who she's interested in and wants to share, well, we love her tips, but her ideas are she wants to bring people in, spotlight, and share information with you all. So without her and without you, there wouldn't be a presentation, and you are giving a speech. Wouldn't make sense. There, you've got your noun, that's you. You got your action, the verb. You are giving. You're sharing something. You're sharing something that you've taken the time to not only brainstorm and organize, get prepared. You've practiced in front of the mirror, in front of Zoom, in front of your significant other. You've really worked on this. You've put in time and effort just to get to this time when you can share it. What a gift you are giving to us as we listen and receive your presentation. Now, whether it's a presentation, a speech, whatever we call it, to me, it's still a conversation, meaning there's two-way. I love that Jean has felt comfortable enough to speak and to ask me questions as we're going. And when you're in a live presentation, whether you can watch the folks on Zoom or see the chat box, or you're in person, the conversation, even if they're not asking a question, if you're watching, if you've prepared and practiced enough that you can get out of your head and actually see your audience, you'll see those aha moments. You'll see those, I don't get that. They might not even have the nerve to ask you. But if you realize that there are multiple people in your audience that just, it's not clicking, try another story, explain it another way, ask them, what is it that's not getting through? Invite them to tell you, because you've put a lot of effort into this. You want your message to get through. And in order for you to know that it's been received, they have to give you that information back. I got it. I like it. I don't like it. I don't understand. It's a two-way thing, even if you're doing all the talking. Honor yourself. I've heard people open speeches with, well, I didn't know a lot about this, but here's what I got together for you. So I'm really sorry, but I'm, going to give it my best shot. They make excuses before they've even begun. And why should you keep listening if they don't even think it's worthwhile? You've put in the time and effort. There is value there. You have something to share. Honor yourself and respect yourself and your efforts. And when you honor what you have to share, you present that as here's something I am giving you, and I'm proud of it. I may get prouder as I do better, but I'm proud of what I'm doing, and it's better than it was an hour ago, 2 hours ago, 2 days ago, 2 months ago. So honor yourself and allow your audience to honor you as well. Accept the compliments graciously, and honor the folks who invited you to speak. Honor your audience's time and attention. I'm also trusting Jean. If she has to tell me, come on, chop, chop, Peggy, we've got to wrap this up, I will listen to her, because I should have set my own little timer here. But sometimes online, you get the timing, you can still see your desk clock, or you can set your timer, or you will ask someone. In Toastmasters, we actually have a timer, and we're watching them, and they're giving us the timing notes. Or are we on the allocated time? Are we getting close to the end? Should we just cut it off there? Give us your closing arguments, right, Jean, and get out of there. So honor your audience and do your best to stick to your time.
And Peggy, just to interrupt really quickly, you can't see what I have on my screen, but I know exactly how long. I have a little button that says live, and we just hit the 40-minute mark, and I had my eye on that. And the reason I had my eye on that, I'm in no rush to go. This is going to take as long as it's going to take, because it's great. But in my head, I'm thinking I'm limited to a 40-minute video. If I post this on LinkedIn, we're not going to be able to post this. I'm going to have to edit this. And my mind started to wander, Peggy. As wonderful as you are, and as much as I was paying attention, and as much as I think I can multitask, I was thinking, and I think I am probably, well, I am very engaged. I mean, imagine how somebody would be if, you know, they're not the only person listening to you. Sorry, I just thought that was useful, because you were wondering about time, and I've had my eye on it the whole time.
Excellent. Well, thank you for noticing that and being aware of the timing. I didn't know it was a 40-minute video on LinkedIn, so I just learned something. And I knew you were trying to keep this, or at least the informational piece, to, usually I can get through 7 steps beginning to end in 20 minutes, but I like the interaction here, and I know your audience appreciates the questions that you've had, and hopefully they're coming up with questions and things of their own. And just good luck with your editing. Do what you can.
Yeah, and this is still a work in progress, so you know, we'll see, you know, the best place where people want to see these videos. You know, do they want them to be on Facebook? Do they want them to be on LinkedIn? Every time I do one, I, you know, make notes and change something a little bit for the next time. But well, I mean, I guess maybe that's something I should get to at the end, because I mean, I try to be prepared, but at the same time, this is kind of new to me and new in the grand scheme of public speaking. So I just try to learn as I go, and then make the necessary changes.
Perfect. Thank you for doing it and sharing it with us as you go on the journey. So I will wrap this up with step number 7, and that's the visualizing. If the concept of this being a gift wasn't woo-woo enough for you, so I had mentioned that I was going to get into more, you know, a little bit of the mindset. We talked about physical, we talked about you know, being in the room, and the preparing, and the mentally prepared for things. So visualizing is an important piece. If it's good enough for our Olympic athletes, if it's good enough for our astronauts, hopefully they'll get to launch this weekend, it should be good enough for you. Because visualization is a tactic that's been used for a long time. The knowledge that when we close our eyes and we just go into ourselves and really allow ourselves to see, feel, smell, think, experience in our mind, our brain, our perception does not know the difference between the reality, what we call truth, what we're actually experiencing, and what we're experiencing in our mind. So when you go through the process and you practice in your mind giving your presentation, and people clapping at the end of it and telling you what a good job you did, and allowing yourself, what does that feel like? Will I be proud? Will I feel successful? Will I feel accomplished? Will I feel so relieved? Just that sense of, okay, got it done. When you go through those emotions and just let your mind play with that, your brain thinks you just did it. When you can have given that presentation, not just once before in the mirror or on a practice Zoom, but in your mind 5 more times, 10 more times, You're going to knock this out of the park because you've already given this presentation multiple times and your audience loved it. So why wouldn't this audience love it? You're ready, you're calmer, you're more prepared just because you've gone through the information, but you're also more prepared because you set your mind up, you set your mindset to succeed. And that's important. Repeat it until you've done the live speech successfully multiple times. So the final piece, and it's not one of my steps, but that safe place, step 7, was in your head. Where else is a safe place for you to practice? We mentioned Speak Up Manassas Toastmasters Club. We meet the first and third Mondays, noon to 1. We're currently doing Zoom calls, but when we get back to doing in person, we will be meeting again at the Prince William Chamber of Commerce. And here, when you get the download, is our link to Speak Up Manassas, our website. And then also, if that first and third Mondays at noon or the location in Manassas at the Prince William Chamber isn't convenient for you, there's probably another Toastmasters Club at a time and location that could be useful for you. So go to Toastmasters International on the website, click on that link to locate a club, pop your zip code in there, and see what they come up with for times and locations of other clubs available. Thank you for hanging out with me for my 7 steps to take the eek out of public speaking. Thank you, Jean, and you can unshare my screen.
I will unshare the screen so people can see both of our faces, your lovely face. I know that I don't really have a set timeline here, but if anybody that's still watching, they're obviously engaged and care about the information. So I just had a couple of questions that I wanted to follow up with about things that you said, but also some questions I've had in general. And I think they mostly focus on the online speaking. I just did it again.
You're
do you think, I need to breathe. There we go again. Do you think people kind of in a way being forced to these online meetings, for work, or I think a lot of people in this country are, and probably throughout the world, are using Zoom because and other applications and software, et cetera, because we have the ability to, so that we can still be productive and get our work done. So do you think that this opportunity is helping people to hone these skills, or do you think people aren't really looking at it that way, and they should be looking at it as an opportunity to work on their public speaking?
I'm going to say it's yes and no, both. There are still those people that they've hated to hear themselves on the phone, so they hate to see themselves on video. And whether they put up just the profile picture all the time, or they just choose to not engage and don't like looking at themselves, they don't see it as the opportunity that it could be. So we're getting those folks that are still, oh, I don't like this, I don't want this, I can't wait to get back to in person, hate all this online stuff. Even though I'm seeing you, I'm not connected. I'm not touching, I'm not shaking hands, I'm not feeling the presence of people. So for some people, this is a nuisance, a necessary evil, and they don't like it, they're never going to like it. And for some of them, they don't care how that actually works, comes across. They don't want any piece of it. But I think more folks like you have embraced this, have said, this is a new thing. I want to be professional every place that I present myself. I want to use the tools available. I want to get good at how I am showing up. So I'm going to learn to use, whether it's Zoom or StreamYard or this or that. I'm going to do live calls. I'm going to show up at the events. I'm going to participate. I'm going to take these presentation tips to heart. I'm going to think about how I'm showing up and just really step up their game. And that will be a tool in their toolbox for anything that's coming in the future. I believe that this has certainly pushed us all together to a next level. And even as we figure out the new normals and the quarantines slow down, we're allowed to get back together with with coordinating effort, someday will we get back to the way it was? But having this technology and making us think through the options and making us make a choice is going to be huge. And we will never go back to how it was before. We're always going to have this as an option. Which works better? How do we incorporate the two? I'm excited to see what the next 6 months will bring to our new work environment and how we're more effective at communicating using all the different tools and choosing the best for what we're doing. Long answer.
No, that's a great answer. But do you think that this is a good opportunity for people to work on their public speaking skills, or do you think that the skills that you're talking about in general are applicable in person and online, or are there different skills for online public speaking? And I say public speaking because the public can see me. I'm not in public. So do you think there are a new set of skills that people need to hone for speaking online, or all the same skills and tips apply to online and in person?
I feel the basic skills are the same. There will always be a little tweaking. In person, you think about how big is the room? Is that a few people at a table and I'm just using my regular voice? Am I standing up in front of like the boardroom at the chamber? In order to be heard from one end to the other, you need to raise your volume a little more and practice slowing down a little bit to make sure that you enunciate and are heard clearly. When you're online like this, I'm using my audio. So there's the audio check online. Is that working? Are we getting feedback? Is my streaming fast enough? And still, should I slow down? Do I need to enunciate? How am I being received on the other end? So any venue, whether it's a stadium or a boardroom or one-on-one in a coffee shop or online, you and me, or you and me and 50 other people, we're always going to have the audio. We're going to have how well is my message coming across? How am I using tools, props, visual aids? How is that working in this instance? So to me, it's the same basic set of questions, and it just depends on how you're framing it and where it's going to be seen. And you have to go through those same steps and keep those same things in mind, whether you're managing an audience and they're muted and have to put comments in the chat box, I guess the chat box this way, or or what they're doing in the moment to communicate back with you, how many of them you can see. You work that out. How do you keep the lines of communication going? But that's always an issue. That's always a choice. If you're in a huge stadium and you want that feedback, you may ask them, how often do the rock stars come out and they say, how are y'all doing tonight? Because they want to hear that. Ah, exactly. The roar of the crowd. They need to feed on that. So it small to huge, it's still communicating. So to me, it's still the same skills. You just need to tweak it different for your situation.
Great, good answer. Lynn Green actually had a question. She says, do you have thoughts about public speaking with a mask on if that is required in some environments? Well, so this video is being recorded on May 29th, 2020. Hopefully you all will be watching this for a long time to come. But right now, we're going to be having to wear masks in public. So that's a good question, Peggy. What do you think about that?
That is an excellent question. The two things that come to my mind immediately are, since she's saying she's in a public place and masks are required, so probably the person speaking is closer to the other people. That even that 6 feet, or when we're speaking, especially when we're speaking louder, we've seen the testing that shows that we speak louder, and our little special love goes further too. So if you are required to wear a mask, I am going to encourage you to ask for feedback. Can you understand me? Are you hearing me clearly? Slow down a little bit and be mindful of that muffling. You're probably even getting muffling, and you can't see my lips. So it's not even like you can watch my lips and say, add that into the sound to understand. So speaking more clearly, more slowly, enunciating, being intentional, knowing what you want to say, even if you don't know the exact question, you know the topic, you know the main points that you want to make or the questions you want to ask. So preparing, thinking about how to communicate effectively through that mask, realizing that we can use the upper part of our face, use our eyes to say more. So if you have a speech and you have some emotion that usually you would be smiling or crying, or your mouth is a lot. For me, I do a lot of things with my mouth, so you get a lot of expressions from the lower half of my face. So if I'm covering that, what am I going to do with my eyebrows? What am I going to do with my eyes? How am I going to tilt my head? What else am I going to do with my body language to help me more effectively communicate? Because part of me has been cut off. So much that we rely on in our communication, but we use a lot of body language. That's a whole nother topic and that I'd love to talk about. But just thinking about you certainly see that if you tie my hands down, I'm going to get very frustrated. I'm still going to be wiggling around a lot. So thinking about and intentionally using everything that you can to communicate more effectively, regardless of whether you have to wear a mask or not. Still the same basic set of skills. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, that was a good question. And Peggy, that was actually a really good answer because, like I said, I was in court earlier and, a few other times, not as often recently, but I felt like when I was wearing the mask, I was just naturally, it felt like shouting to me. I was just talking louder. I don't know if I heard the muffle subconsciously. I don't know if other people felt the same way. But I don't, and I usually smile hello to people, and I still smile hello when I have the mask on, and I'm like, why am I doing that? They can't see my smile. But I also think to myself, I hope they can see my eyes crinkling because that I'm smiling. I actually think about those things, and I don't know if that's distracting me or if it's making me more aware of the other things I need to be doing. And that wasn't even public speaking. That was just, general, polite, courteous etiquette, walking past people 6 feet away.
Yeah, of course. That's a very good point.
So yeah, that was a really good question. Peggy, you have just sparked so many questions, but we can't get to all my questions. We're going to have to do this another time. This was so helpful. I hope you guys, everybody watching this, found this helpful. And if you have any other questions, or if you're watching the replay later because this video isn't going anywhere, feel free to leave a note in the comments, and Peggy or I will respond to it. Or if you have any ideas of topics related to public speaking, because there's really so much that we kind of touched on that we could talk about. Maybe even just public speaking, online, and or body language or something like that. I think those are really interesting topics. So if you would be willing to spend your time with me again, Peggy, I would love to have you back.
Certainly. I would love to be back with you, Jean. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, Peggy, I'll just leave it with you. If there's any final thoughts you want to leave everybody with, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
I think I have shared everything I feel the need to share today, other than encouraging folks to consider Toastmasters as a warm, safe, encouraging environment to practice your public speaking, whatever that environment means for you. Find a club and give it a try. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Peggy, so much. I'm looking forward to my first official Toastmasters meeting on Monday, and I will see you all on Facebook again soon, and we will replay this video. And again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or suggestions for future topics about public speaking or anything else. But on that note, I am going to say goodbye. So Peggy, have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.